Hi everyone and welcome to a new video, and this is one that I've really been looking forward to putting together because Automobalista 2 has hit version 1.4, and for those of you who've been keeping track with my videos of late, you will know that version 1.4 basically is where they round off and get the physics to a mature state. That's pretty much what Razer have said. On top of that, we've got some new content and other bits and pieces, but I want to start off by talking about one of the things that was supposed to happen at the same time as 1.4 coming out, which was the launch of the Racing USA Part 3 DLC. But that's kind of been put on hold because Razer may be getting the IndyCar license to one degree or another. We don't know. So what they've actually done, and I actually think this is a really good move, is the Racing USA Part 3 DLC that's ready and not impacted by potential license negotiations has been put on to AMS 2 for free for everybody to try, and you've got until they reach the end of these licensing discussions, and whatever happens off the back of that, we'll either get some licensed IndyCar content or it will go back to the Formula USA 2022 car, and only then will you have to pay for this content if you want to keep it. So I actually think that's quite a nice way of doing it. But what's been added in terms of that is we've had the WWT Raceway Speedway and Road Course configuration has been added. The Auto Club Speedway, and both the Speedway and Road Course for that has been added, and the Daytona Tri-Oval layout has also been added. So they all form part of the Racing USA Part 3. In addition to that, we've got the Formula USA Gen 1 to 3 have been given short oval, speedway and super speedway configurations. The Ginetta G55 GT3 has been added to the GT Open class. The Mini Cooper 1965 has been added to the Cooper Classics B class. There's a new Cooper truck vehicle, which is the Vulcan truck, and the Mercedes AMG GT4 has been added to the GT4 class. So we've got some content been added in here. Some of it is arguably a bit copy and paste. So for example, the 65 Mini Cooper, we already have that in one of the vintage touring car classes, but it has been tweaked because one of the things I did notice comparing the two side by side in the specs is it's gained about 5 to 8 bhp between the vintage touring and the Copper Classic B, so there's a bit of balanced performance has been going on along there as well, as you would expect. And you will see in the various footage that is backing this video up some examples of what I've just talked through there. But the main thing is the physics that have been wrapped up and everything's been put into place. So there's a lot of work that's gone on there. They've also introduced something called advanced mechanical damage modelling, which to read from the patch notes, and by the way, the patch notes and everything I will link to in the description. It is currently available on most open wheelers, GT and the faster prototypes. You need to enable mechanical failures under the gameplay options, and basically you can get random failures. Things can go pop, things can go bang, and if you turn that on with the damage set up to max, yeah, you're letting yourself in for it, you really are. So watch your over revving and things like that at that point, but you know, it adds and ups that level of realism within Automobalista 2, and I for one think that's a good thing to have an option for. You don't have to use it, it's entirely your choice, but you've got it there if you want to take advantage of it. So the physics, now this is where the vast bulk of this is, but it's a huge list. It really is, and I'm not going to go through every single bit of it, but you know, we've had huge revisions to the tyre thermodynamic models, changes around compounds, engine revisions have been carried out, so how the actual engines are modelled, turbos, compression and torque curves have been played around with. They've revised the limited slip diff models for a whole range of cars, played around with the radiator and brake duck ranges, redone throttle mappings for some cars, rejigged all of the BOP with a lot of stuff around that, played around with centre of gravity, moved fuel tanks and their sizes and all sorts of stuff like this. It's a huge list, and the upshot is that in terms of consistency, we have now pretty much got that. Now, at the time of recording this, a couple of hot fixes had already come out, and I'm sure we'll get some more. This isn't a finish, this is getting the physics to that, as I say, mature state, so that we shouldn't, going forward now, see any huge changes in the physics, but get more tweaks in the physics to fine-tune it and things like that. But the end result is that not only are the physics within Automobalista 2 now incredibly impressive, they're also very consistent across pretty much the entire content that you find in there, and there's a lot of good content within Automobalista 2. That, without a shadow of a doubt, is true. Yes, the road car offering is light, but they're the expensive things in a lot of cases to get the licenses for, so that's understandable. It'll be nice if it grows over time, but it's good to see the level of content we've got now has got this consistency of approach to it, and that's shining through a lot more on the force feedback. The force feedback, I'm really liking how it works. Now, I will, as one of my recent videos will no doubt testify to, I've always been a big fan of the Madness engine. I've always thought there's a hell of a lot of potential within the Madness engine, particularly its tyre model. I think its tyre model is one of its key strengths. Past iterations have, and this includes earlier versions of Automobalista 2, suffered with issues around how you get the ramp up on the limited slip differentials and how that behaved, and even with open diffs, how it behaved could be a bit odd at times. That is pretty much all gone away now. What we have now is an incredibly robust, incredibly strong, and really accurate physics engine model going on here, married with what I think now is quite a mature and good force feedback engine. And you then really got to look at where does that fit into the pecking order of things. And this is a conversation, let's be honest, as sim racers, we are going to have backwards and forwards as to what is the best physics engine around. You know, some people will say that it's iRacing. I personally would disagree with that. I think it's still got work to do on its tyre model in particular. Assetto Corsa Competizione has got a strong shout there, being perfectly honest. It should have, because it's got such a limited range of vehicles to work with. They've got the opportunity to really hone things around there. You know, you've got titles like Race Room that have matured a lot over the last year or so, that do actually feel pretty robust and pretty good, but they don't quite have that last degree in there. You've then got, you know, titles like older stuff, Assetto Corsa, which would really be out of contention if it wasn't for the work around the extended physics that have been done coming out of Content Manager and custom shaders options. Always feels weird saying that. The amount of stuff that custom shaders has brought to the title along with Content Manager is mad. It's long surpassed its title of just being shaders and has a hell of a lot more stuff going on within there and within Content Manager. You know, so it's hard to know exactly which one is the best. Now, if you held a gun to my head and say, you know, which one do I think is probably the best physics engine available on the market, I'd honestly say R-Factor 2. It's not perfect, it can be exploited, but then every physics engine on every title you're going to find exploits if you play around with it enough. But in terms of overall quality of physics modelling and what it does and what you get out of it, I would say that R-Factor 2 is still king of the hill. But what R-Factor 2 is also is an incredibly unfriendly title from a user's point of view. You know, the core content is very good, some of the modding content is very good, but as a title it's just obnoxious to use in so many ways, which is why I have a love-hate relationship to it. How far away now is Automobalista 2? Well, in all honesty, not a million miles behind it. Where I think you've got that real strength within R-Factor 2 over AMS 2 is around weight transfer and load transfer, but I now honestly would say that I think that AMS 2 has a better tyre model than R-Factor 2, and things are balancing out there. I still prefer the force feedback in R-Factor 2. I think that's still one of the finest implementations around, and it works really well. But again, AMS2 is catching up in this regard. But in terms of the core content you get, even if you factor in official DLC, and I'm ignoring mods here, yes, you can get far more mods for R-Factor 2, and if that's your bag, absolutely brilliant. I love a good mod myself. And you can mod AMS2, but it's messy and tricky. So removing the mod side of things for now and looking at the pure core content and the official DLC for it, in terms of what is offered as a complete package, AMS2, in my view, is ahead of the curve there. The thing that's missing for me from AMS2 that I'd really like to see is a wider range of front-wheel drive touring cars. If they could tie up or at least do their own faux versions of some of the BTCC stuff or the various TCR championships that run around the world, that I would love to see, because that's kind of the modern touring car bit is missing from AMS2, and R-Factor 2 does that well. But overall, in terms of tracks, in terms of the car list and quality of life and the user interface and user experience, I personally think that AMS2 is ahead in that regard. I think its physics engine is only a shade now behind what it needs to be. Force feedback, again, only a shade behind what it needs to be. And when you then come to overheads and running it, for what you get out as an end result, the amount of oomph you have to put into R-Factor 2, it is absurd. It is not a well-optimised title. And a similar criticism can be, I think, quite justifiably levelled at Assetto Corsa Competizione. It's capable of looking absolutely stunning, but you need a beast to be able to do it, and it's not brilliantly optimised from that point of view. And I actually think that AMS2 gets a really solid balance there. You don't need a beast of a machine to be able to run it and get some really good results. I think its live track and the weather system that it runs, particularly with the live weather and the historical weather that's on there, it is class leading in that regard. I genuinely do. And overall as a package, it all comes together really well. And then when you add in VR onto that as well, the Madness engine and VR just go really well together. And in terms of bang for your buck from a VR performance point of view, it walks all over, I think, just about anything else that's on the market in that regard. It really does. And the nice thing, what I like to see from Razer and what they have done is they've, rather than just go, oh well, we've added more shiny stuff in, the headroom that you had before has now disappeared in your GPU and your CPU setup. They have actually taken the time over the years to further optimize the engine from a particularly a graphical point of view, and that's really nice to see because it's kept people in the game in that regard. So overall, what I think version 1.4 does for AMS2 is it gives them now, and it's taken a little while, in all fairness, it has taken a little while, a really, really solid physics and force feedback platform to build off of now. They've got a good range of content, they've got a good range of bang for your buck in terms of what it looks like versus what it plays like. And I think this is a really good springboard, and I just hope that they have the backing and the funding available to them to carry on building on this and pushing forward with it, because what I'd really hate to see is that we have another Madness engine title that gets so close yet something goes wrong with it at the end, and I really don't want to see that. I want to see this one succeed. So yeah, for me, version 1.4, it's a triumph for Razer, and it's a triumph for Automobalista 2, and I would go so far as to make the bold claim that I personally think that it makes it the single most rounded sim title on the market right now, in terms of that balance between your look and feel and your bang for your bucks, user friendliness, good content with a lot to do within it, and a really solid physics engine and force feedback that is not necessarily the best around there, but it really is right the way up there. I think it deserves a kind of King of the Hill title in that regard, because right now I think it offers the best of everything, without making too many undue compromises around that, which is really good to see. And I just hope that people start picking up on it more and more, and getting into it more and more, and appreciating what it does. And hopefully this can finally leave behind and put a nail in the coffin of that, oh, well, it can't be any good because it's running on the Madness engine nonsense. The Madness engine was always a good base. It was just never pushed and given the investment, bizarrely, by Slightly Mad Studios. And I say bizarrely because they created the damn thing, but they never, for whatever reasons, and it may well have been publisher pressure, they never stuck with it long enough to be able to really see it mature. And you need to stick with it in a single title to do that, I think, in the way that Razer have. And yeah, hats off to them. I absolutely love what we've got now, and it's really, really, really good fun to play around with. It's a great title, in my opinion, in that regard. So yeah, that's my current view on where we stand with version 1.4 of Automobalista 2. Let me know what your views are in the comment section down below. If you found this video useful, or at the very least entertaining, please do hit the like button. Of course, if you didn't, hit the dislike button. That is your choice. And if you want to see more content like this, please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified when new content gets uploaded. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Take care, and bye.